Stugotz just ran in here after God Bless Football with Billy. Billy had a laptop under his arm. They sprinted in here because we've been off for 2 weeks, and there are a lot of people who want to talk. But Stugotz just said, I have to go to the bathroom. And so he left. Jessica's sneezing because we have a raw sewage leak around here that isn't Stugotz. And I cannot begin to tell you how many things happened locally over the last 2 weeks that we didn't get to talk about. Mike Ryan is a gurgling volcano of rage at the Miami Heat. Billy Gill is mad at the Miami Dolphins. Chris Cody, right on the fence, has no opinion on anything. Jessica walked into Mike Golick's house, and Shane Gillis was there. Which isn't really a surprise that someone who looks like Shane Gillis was there. Shane Gillis himself, maybe. Roy is just happy because the Panthers are still the best.
Goddamn right.
Billy, how are you doing today? You've done a lot of work over the last few days. You were working harder than anybody on God Bless Football. Football never stops. How are you feeling today? You're still wearing the Dolphin hat from yesterday, and I would think that your allegiances, Chris Cody is too, I would think that your allegiances are in disrepair today.
Disrepair is making it seem like it's irreparable. Right? Disrepair?
I think it can be repaired, but at the moment it's in disrepair. It is in need of repair. I would think that your emotional fandom is in need of repair.
I could have done with a day or two of making Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel feel like there was a little bit of heat on their seat. You know what I mean? As the people say, like let's make them sweat a little bit, not just immediately like we thought about it. Everything's fine. We're going to do the exact same thing next year. Let's run it back. This was a great season. I could have done without that. Also, Tyreek Hill, are you in or are you out? Make a decision. Enough with these cryptic. I guess yesterday was the first time that we actually had like the first video.
Wait, may I ask, like, are you in or you? Was it subtle yesterday?
Well, no, because this is how it works. This is how it works with him. We tweet something, and it's like, no. I meant this other thing. And then I'll tweet something else like, no, I meant this other thing. I was just, I really wanted to wish the Chiefs a Happy New Year. And then next year he seems to just be thinking out loud like, I think I got to get out of here. By the way, some people have been saying that he's washed. Not going to say who. Some people have said that. But, like, also, like, if you want to go, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you. You know what I mean?
Little bit of a difference between the management and strategy of how Jimmy Butler gets out of town and how Tyreek Hill does it. Just a general management difference.
Well, Tyreek just does everything fast. Jimmy, this was very
Not
clearly.
this
Well, no, that's the thing I want to ask you guys. He's also not as good this year, right? He wasn't, and there might be reasons for that. And I'm not saying that he can't be as good as he was like 2 years ago again, but I mean, it seemed like a pretty clear drop off. This is a strange.
He didn't
time.
have a 1,000-yard season. Like that's automatic.
He just didn't look. He didn't look like the same kind of threat, but he's still talking about himself like he's the same kind of threat. And I understand. Like he's probably going to play for 6 more seasons and for 3 more teams because that kind of speed straight line is still such a valuable commodity.
I mean, he dealt with various injuries throughout the season. He had his knee procedure that we learned about, and he had his wrist that needed to be repaired. He needs surgery on his wrist. I mean, there's lots of reasons why the Dolphins season went off the rails this year. 2 of not playing, the majority of it was part of it, but also Tyreek Hill was not Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle dealt with injuries. You lost a lot of people on the defensive end. That's why I think the news almost immediately after the game that everyone's safe, we're just going to do the exact same thing next year, was not something that the fan base wanted to hear.
I don't think anyone thinks the Dolphins are the Bills or the Chiefs, but I think if Tua played the whole season, are they not the Texans and the Chargers?
Well,
You don't want to
we're
be the
not.
Texans today. The Texans suck.
I'm just saying I think if Tua's healthy the whole season, we're easily a playoff team. So
Okay.
like they are. You could make the argument that they're close.
But close to what, I guess, is the question, right? Like, what are the Dolphins close to? Because
To being the Texans.
And that's not what you want. Right? Like, an argument can be made that they wasted this window.
Yes, they certainly wasted what I told you yesterday was the third, the defense that ranked third in the sport going into the game yesterday is the best defense the Dolphins have had in 22 years. That's 22 years they haven't had a defense that plays this well. They have no running game. You can't have that today. We'll get to all of the minutia there in a second because we got plenty to talk about. Chris Greer being safe. Most general managers, 8 years, you don't win a playoff game, you don't have any Pro Bowlers this year, that's not safe.
And you wasted the best kicker in the league.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second as well. We've got a picture of Billy Gill with Jason Sanders that we want to show you. The gym. Let's just get started. Let's go. Let's go.
Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls better tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for one man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys, not so tough, but man's keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls better tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
The first week that we were off over the last 2 weeks, some of the following happened locally. This is just some of it. The University of Miami's basketball coach stepped down. Tyreek Hill posted the Chargers as his co-favorite to trade for him. That was at the beginning of this. Tua out for a couple of games, pretty important games. Everyone got mad at both me and Mike and Cam Ward. Cam McCormick, a legendary run at UM, is over after 9 years. Tyler Hero got ragdolled by the Houston Rockets in what wasn't a fight, but you never see an NBA player thrown like that unless he weighs 160 pounds. Jimmy Butler said he preferred a trade. Pat Riley said there will be no trade. Pat Riley got checkmated. We've watched 14 years of how Pat Riley loses power to the player. We've watched, or 10 years of it, I guess is what we would say, right? Since LeBron left him in Vegas, it's gone poorly for Pat Riley when it comes to player acquisition. And also the University of Miami fired its defensive coordinator. And Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald is going after Jimmy Butler's camp. Spin the wheel, Chris Cody, because we've got a lot of local issues to get to.
And I'm celebrating a holiday today.
Yes, happy January 6th. I love female Joe Zagacki. Like, we need more.
Friendly reminder, this is a man's job.
In the corner of the screen, you will see Billy Gill with Jason Sanders, a clear kinship, partnership, soulmates have discovered each other. And now Billy says that Jason Sanders is the best kicker in the league. They wasted a great Jason Sanders season.
I mean, Pro Bowl snub if I've ever seen one.
Let's go ahead and, Andrew Van Ginkel made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. But he dropped that interception last night that really kind of ended the Viking season.
I wish there were a prop bet I can make on DraftKings. Will Andrew Van Ginkel touch a football during play today? I would make that bet because it's weird. It's weird how often he's around the football. I don't understand.
Got a nose for the ball,
I don't
Dan.
understand it. It would be just as confusing to me if he did it on a stallion with flowing hair. 2 players in the league, I imagine, playing on a stallion. Him and Trevor Lawrence.
Huh.
I want to talk, though, at some point. Don't let me leave here without talking to my father today, calling him up, and getting to talk about that mutant Frankenstein McBride who plays tight end for the Cardinals, who I saw yesterday jump up in a way that his knee almost touched his ear and his knee was above the head of somebody, a linebacker, who he stiff-armed with his hip, because we're just making just these weird mutants at tight end where Brock Bowers is the best tight end ever in receptions, according to Gronk.
Right.
Gronk is saying that's going to be the best tight end ever. But let's go ahead and spin the wheel here on local issues.
So all of those issues are on the wheel, you're saying?
Yes.
Including your dad?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything is on the wheel. And also, Billy and Stugotz just finished God Bless Football. It will be out shortly. Please, Billy, if Stugotz recycles any takes, I need you to keep an eye on this because I want his fresh and his best stuff here. I don't want the recycled God Bless Football stuff. That's great over there. It's an award-winning show, at least in part because he does that over there.
It can be, again, by the way, if you go to sportspodcastgroup.com, you can vote for God Bless Football, Best American Football Podcast. I believe this is the last week of voting, so we'd appreciate your vote. Also, I would ask you guys, check me if I repeat any takes as well, because, as you mentioned, we did a lot of streaming yesterday and then this morning, so I think I've observed everything so far in football. I don't know if there's any more observations to be had.
This is the first time I've heard your love of Jason Sanders, so you're good so far.
Okay, good.
Yes.
You are bringing the fresh stuff here, but people have been getting a lot of the Duke the last 24 hours, and I need to spin the wheel here. And you guys tell me, I can't see so well, so you guys tell me what it lands on. Please, Stugotz.
Whoa, it landed on the Kansas City Chiefs, Dan. I am telling you, this is the year to get the Kansas City Chiefs. You know what they did yesterday, Dan? They did what champions don't do. They told the entire league, they told everyone, you know what? We're scared of Joe Burrow. We don't want Joe Burrow in the playoffs. Why? Because Joe Burrow is a guy who will walk into Arrowhead and he will beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Stugotz major penalty, 5 minutes.
I'm not done
the
yet.
Chiefs.
I'll get there. Trey Wingo has told me this story no fewer than a dozen times that last year, Patrick Mahomes woke up on his way to work. He called his wife and he said, you know what? I've decided the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl this year. And you know what I did this morning, Dan? I drove into work. And I called my wife, Abby, and I told her, Abby, I've decided the Kansas City Chiefs are not going to win the Super Bowl this year. How about that? This is the year to get them. They're scared.
What just happened? Stugotz has had 2 weeks off.
The wheel, man.
No,
Can't control the wheel.
That wasn't on the wheel. I clearly said what was on the wheel. That was not on the wheel.
You can see it. It's covered.
Jessica, can you tell the people what it says on the board behind me, please?
It says, actually, we just spun again back here. You didn't hear it. It says the Pop-Tart Bowl, actually. Wow. That's what
wow.
That's what we're gonna
Jessica, I don't know what show you're doing. I asked you
It's
a
actually
question.
Pop-Tarts Bowl.
That's my bad.
Got a minor penalty, 2 minutes for
It's
ruining
Pop's
comedy.
Tart Bowl.
I learned during that broadcast that there's actually no such thing as a Pop-Tart. If you get just one Pop-Tarts, it's still a Pop-Tarts.
What?
That's crazy.
That's what the broadcaster said.
Jessica, I need you to leave,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
But it was kind of funny.
Okay, thank you for telling us that. I appreciate you telling us it was kind of funny. It's not what I asked you, and what's behind me, I believe, to be funnier than that, because I wanted you, Gringa, to explain to people what it says behind me, because the graphics and the video people are wishing, it looks like they're wishing everyone a Happy New Year, which it's too late to be doing that. We've agreed on that. But also what they're actually doing is they're wishing people, I'm pretty sure, a happy new anus. Oh, yeah. I think Ano, if you don't put the, what is that called? The Enye is called the what? It's called...
I always thought it was called an Enye, Dan.
Yeah.
how do you spell Enye? Is it a tilde? Like if you were explaining...
in the alphabet, Enye is its own letter.
I got this.
Like,
the
how do you spell
squiggly
the
thing.
letter A?
The squiggly thing above the N.
Right, well,
Like
you need
umlaut,
it, though.
nailed it.
We need the squiggly thing
Well,
above.
we just misspelled it. The N and Enye are two different letters.
It's hard. It's like one of those Alt 164 situations. Which Alt is it? I don't know.
I don't know either. Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show, Juju. Do you know where the tilde or the Enye is on the keyboard?
Well, I'm just saying it's a different letter. It might as well be a Z.
So we're saying Happy New Anus?
I think ano is ano not anus in Spanish? I think ano is anus in Spanish, I believe. Roy, please look that up for us. Thank you for doing so.
I'm on it.
Can you spin the wheel again, please? Spin the wheel so that I can... Chris, what's on the wheel? Where did it land?
Heat fans thinking they could change Jimmy Butler.
Well, I really didn't say that either, but...
That's just my hot take.
Okay.
We can talk Jimmy Butler, though. That's what it landed on.
It's a big wheel.
It's just, I mean, Jimmy Butler, how many marriages is this? And we thought we were the one that could change him. I mean, this is Heat fans just thinking that the culture and everything. I mean, Jimmy is who we thought he was.
Okay. hold on a second. So you mentioned marriage. The number one reason for divorce is money. It's finances. It's the number one reason people get divorced. The number one reason that people go from loving to hating is divorce. From love to hate. I will get to the macro criticisms that everyone wants of Pat Riley. He has absolutely failed over the last decade in a way that cannot be argued to get Jimmy Butler better help that he needed. He has been cursed by the fact, and Jimmy Butler was too, they're very good at making overachievers. But what do overachievers do? They achieve to the maximum of what their ceiling is, and Jimmy Butler's was never better than it was here. It was a spectacular relationship. It worked while it lasted. Jimmy Butler bailed Pat Riley out of Whiteside and waiters. Of Whiteside and waiters, Jimmy Butler covered a lot of shit over the last 5 years for the Heat. Spoelstra covered a lot of shit for the Heat. But also, Jimmy Butler was the best Jimmy Butler here, and no one in the history of the Heat, other than LeBron, has done more for themselves by virtue of coming through the land of overachievers. When you carry Max Strus and Vincent to the finals, you get rewarded for that. So we will get to the criticism of the moment, because I know Heat fans are mad, and they should be, because they've been passed in the conference by a whole bunch of people who are more aggressive, and we all saw how close Boston and Miami were. We saw the changes Boston made, and we've seen Kyle Lowry. We've seen very little since Chris Bosh had to leave the team, other than getting Jimmy Butler. And so what ends up happening to the Miami Heat, we all know more than ever the last 5 years, they're great at making players better. We know it in a way that we don't really know it about any other team. Wow, I've seen for 5 years how they've got a bunch of overachievers. But the blessing is now the curse, because the overachievers, look at who they are. Show me all the high draft picks, because all those players are at their ceilings. I know Bam's been terrible this year, but Tyler and Jimmy and Duncan, they're all of them at what is their drafted ceilings. Like, they're the best that they can be. They can't be any better than that. That's what the Heat do for you. Pat Riley gets credit for that. He gets credit for the culture, for Spo and all that stuff. But he has failed to get Jimmy Butler what he needed, and this is punctuational disaster at the end, because now his value is nuked, and he got checkmated by player empowerment, which is something that began to happen in 2014 when LeBron surprised him and left. And everything that's happened with player power since ends with Jimmy Butler being able to say, hey, Pat, bleep off. I've got the players union behind me. You didn't give me my extension. I've been upset about this for a while. I've been upset and I've been quiet, but now I want my money. And I understand why anyone in America who watches basketball would get mad at Jimmy Butler. What do you mean you got no joy for basketball at this $50 million because you need the next $50 million? Like, what do you mean you've got no joy for basketball on a contract when you're already being paid $50 million?
Anno with the regular N, not anyo with the Nye, does in fact mean anus.
One more time?
Anno with the regular N.
Okay.
Not anyo with
Slowly.
the Nye, does in fact mean anus.
Okay.
Good.
So we're wishing everybody in America and on Peacock and on Sirius and on Max, we're wishing them a happy new anus. That's what we're doing.
Good for us.
It's nice.
Yeah.
New year, new anus.
I'd like a new anus.
I'd take one.
Yeah.
I'm good with mine.
Want to trade yours in?
Yeah, but it's one of those, you'd rather get it, it's better to get a new one too early than too late.
Correct.
I liken it to like an old baseball glove. I've worn this one in.
This one's home.
Put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Are you satisfied with your present anus?
Would you like a new anus?
Well, that's the secondary question. You can, and both things can be true, I suppose. You can be satisfied with your present one and want a new one. What shouldn't be true is that the video staff is putting behind me that America should have a happy new anus when that's not what we're wishing people.
Maybe Larinaga took that Enye with him.
Spin the wheel again, please. We'll get back to Jimmy Butler. Jessica, what does it say on the wheel?
It says Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Well, let's play the video of a rambling Tyreek Hill. Actually, cut out the rambling for me and just play the end because this was strange. And I don't know. Can you guys tell me what's true? Because you know the internet always fools me. He missed a day of practice last week, and then on Instagram Live, he was clearly out shopping somewhere. Those things, people noticed it. Investigators noticed that Tyreek Hill, at least one day last week, was out sick and didn't appear to be sick in public.
Not shopping. I believe he was at one of the stores that he owns signing autographs.
Okay, and this has been, it seems, ending for a while. Tyreek Hill is very useful when he's getting you 1,800 yards. The other stuff becomes more problematic when it's less than 1,000 yards in a season.
I am just amazed that this Dolphin offense, which scored 70 points in a game, was an offense that a lot of offensive players were envious of, and they wanted to play down here, and it has turned that quickly on Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins. I'm amazed by that.
I have to issue a correction. Now, this information about Pop-Tart versus Pop-Tarts came directly from the Pop-Tart Bowl broadcast, in which the commentators said there's no such thing as a singular Pop-Tart. However, I have been texted a photo of single-packaged Pop-Tart being called Pop-Tart with no S at the end. Wow. So either some bad information was given, or this is a fake doctored photo. I will continue to work.
The Tyreek Hill thing is interesting for a number of reasons, but let's go ahead and play the sound. This was after him 2 minutes of you couldn't have seen this coming. This was very strange the way this played out. We're not going to play the rambling 2 minutes before it, but at the end, he nails the gymnastics dismount, and this is the time, incidentally. Right there is the greatest moment to interview any football player about whether he wants to quit football on the spot. The end of a season that ends with you not making the playoffs for the first time in your life, the emotions are going to leak out of him. So here he is talking about, well, I'm done in Miami.
I don't even know, bro. You know, this is my first time I haven't been in the playoffs, man. So, I mean, for me, like I said, man, I just got to do what's best for me and my family, dog. If that's here, or if that's wherever the case may be, man, I'm finna open that door for myself, dog. As I'm opening the door, like I'm out, bro. You know, so it was great playing here, but you know, at the end of the day, bro, I got to do what's best for, you know, for my career and, you know, what's best. Because I'm too much of a competitor to be, you know, just out there.
Mean you thinking about leaving here?
If it is, hey, yes.
Can I just call Tyreek Hill not Calais Campbell? Because you see Calais Campbell, he's just like the best leader you could ever be, the best teammate, and it's like, yeah, when everything's good, Tyreek's fine, but as soon as anything bad happens, he's just done with you. And
well,
it's just,
everything has been good the entirety of his career except his behavior. I don't know what happened in yesterday's game. Is that where he learned how to check out of a game? Like, what happened during that game? There was some confusion. It wasn't an injury. McDaniel was told he was not available.
Once again, just not Calais Campbell. That's what he is.
That is correct.
Immature. Sorry, I hated that sound. I just hate everything about that.
Yes, this is how bad seasons end. This is how bad marriages end. This is what's happening in this town at the moment. And look, there's a leadership problem in town around sports. Okay,
Hey. Paul Maurice is still here.
Mm-hmm. If every star wants to leave Miami, I don't, you know, is it us? Maybe it's us. Like, if we're the common denominator here. Maybe it's us.
But to Chris's point, he's right about Tyreek Hill. This is the first adversity he's had to go through as an NFL player. He's been on great teams. He was on the Chiefs. He was on a great offense with the Dolphins for the first couple of years on the field, and his numbers have been great. But the second it goes the other way on the team and on Tyreek Hill, he wants out.
Yes, a friendly reminder, Gustav Forsling and Samson Reinhart took discounts.
Well said.
Yeah, but Lucy, Jimmy Butler, and Tyreek Hill.
We have a leadership problem in sports across South Florida. So Larinaga is out. He got chewed up at the end. All of this momentum, it usually doesn't dissipate that fast. That was sort of shocking to see how quickly all of that happened to Larinaga when they had the hardest thing the hardest thing. You get to the Final Four. That's the springboard. Go now. And then it just collapses. They were terrible. They lost to Charleston Southern at home last year by 25. Truly terrible. And he doesn't get the punctuation he wants. Chris Grier, there are reports/rumors that he's going to have reports/rumors. I don't know what's true here. Billy, do you know anything here? Chris Grier is supposed to go to another position, allegedly, in the organization with the Dolphins. I don't know how real that is. It is something that's being talked about.
Well, I mean, Stephen Ross put out a statement yesterday saying everybody's kind of staying in the same roles. So I think that they've gone, if that was a thing, I think they've gone away from that.
Okay, so that's 8 years now without a playoff victory. There are no Pro Bowlers on the Dolphins. Andrew Van Ginkel just made the Pro Bowl. Traded Jamar Chase. Traded Laramie Tunsil, traded the possibility of these things.
Jamar Chase.
No, he didn't. He didn't trade him specifically, but something in the transactions. Forgive me because this is a tweet. I've got to look at the source, and I got too many notes after 2 weeks. I'll get back to what it is that is in a second. But Chris Grier has been in that job for 8 years, Stugotz.
Yep.
In the organization for 20, working his way up as well.
Yeah, but it's uncommon for a guy to be a GM of a team for 8 years, not win a playoff game, and still have a job. That's uncommon.
This is not really. I understand the disappointment of this season, but Dolphin fans love this guy entering the seasons. The results weren't there, and we don't have to overthink this one. The season got undone by the thing we were fearing for years would undo the season, which was an injury to a fragile quarterback. You're overthinking this one. Chris Grier, while that player is actively campaigning to leave town right now, just a season ago was voted the best player in the NFL. Chris Grier acquired him.
But I think what the season did was it cast a spotlight on the fact that there was no contingency plan. And now you're moving forward, and if Tua gets hurt again, which is a very real possibility in any form, not just the concussion thing. We saw the hip thing undid him at the end of the season. What is the plan? And it seems as though they're trusting the same people to be in charge of making that plan next year. When we saw this year, there didn't seem to be a very good one.
We better see the best quarterback room ever next year. I don't know why we didn't see it this year. I'm with Grier. I'm fine with Grier staying. Like, obviously, the elephant in the room is that quarterback position. Like, you screwed that up. You thought Skylar Thompson was enough to be your backup, and that was just a big fart.
Who do you want in that room?
Hold on.
Damn, we're talking quarterback rooms.
Hold on. I don't want to talk Dolphin backup quarterback.
They tried to get him. Did you see that rumor?
Hold on. I know what you guys want to
no.
talk about. I'm not interested in that portion of this at the moment. The portion of this I want to talk about, because Chris brought it up, they would have been a playoff team if Tua has stayed healthy. He played in a career-low 11 games, okay? So he missed 6 games. He's averaged 4 missed games per season. All the teams deep in the playoffs, their quarterbacks have stayed healthy, right? It's a little bit of Jalen Hurts here, might be hurt for a little while. Jordan Love might miss a game or two. But largely, the playoff teams, if you look at their quarterbacks aren't missing 6 games. Yes, they have a fragile quarterback, but when you say that's not Chris Grier's fault, and I heard Mina and Dominique talking about this. Dominique will join us here in a little bit. The Dolphin run game is one of the worst in the league. Their offensive line continues to be a problem. McDaniel was supposed to solve that as somebody who did that as the offensive coordinator in Atlanta when Matt Ryan became a MVP. He was supposed to bring run game with him no matter whether it's Mostert, 18 touchdowns, or Achane, or anybody. The touchdowns, it does not matter. Yeah, it's better to have McCaffrey, but from that chain, you run the football. They could not run the football at all. And so then what it's built on is, Tua, can you do it in 2 seconds every time? Can you do it in 3 seconds every time? That's pretty flimsy. Like when the whole thing is built on that, and then go win in the cold. He's going to get hurt. You're going to miss games. You're not likely to get the bye, and go win in the cold with a Ferrari.
If I may, like that's a staple of the Shanahan offense, and McDaniel's a disciple of that. His first year, we were all wondering, when is this run game going to explode? Second season, it did. Third season here in Miami, it seemed as though in the early part of the season, defenses adjusted. to what Mike McDaniel was doing. And then Mike McDaniel in the middle of the season decided to change his strategy, did a lot of interesting things with motion. All of a sudden, Jonnu Smith becomes the focal point of the offense. I think Mike McDaniel actually showed you a lot in terms of being able to pivot and understand the adjustments that defenses make. Also, this coaching staff knew it had a defense problem last season, and they corrected it. They made a pretty strong hire. Yesterday's game notwithstanding, they seem to be more solidified defensively. I do think there are good things here. The contingency plan thing is something that we were all confused by. Why'd you bring in Mike White just to let him go? It's not. I know that Tua just had his healthiest season, but this is not a question mark that simply goes away because of one season. They failed there. They took a chance. The bet blew up in their face. I don't think you fire people just because the thing that we all feared did actually happen. I trust them to actually make the right corrections like they've proven they can.
Imagine Joe Flacco on that quarterback.
I was just looking it up right now. He's available.
Oh, my God.
And he's going to be turning 40.
Or Joe Milton.
Give me Dalton and a rookie. That's what I want.
Red Rifle.
Dalton and a rookie.
I need options.
Forgive me. Chris Greer selected Waddle instead of Chase. Is what he did. Traded Minkah Fitzpatrick, traded Laramie Tunsil, a trade that I liked. The larger point is the bottom line on 8 years is 0 playoff wins and another season that now has, because of where the expectations were, man, we saw this with the Browns, Stugotz. We lived all of this. Because of where the expectations were with this team, you cannot have another year of McDaniel end with this and not have a fan base that has not had a playoff victory this century since Lamar Smith in 2001. You cannot have all of this without the fan base wanting a place to put the blame. It can't go blameless for 8 years where you used to be the winningest franchise in all of sports. You built this town and all the sports around it based on Dolphin excellence. And there are 2 generations of people who have no familiarity with the Dolphins being any good.
Someone needs to suffer the consequence. Sports fans, when you have a season like this that ends in disappointment, a season that you're talking Super Bowl before, they want a pound of flesh. But I think they do have their explanation. It was Tua. It was the thing that you always feared. And it undid this season, and you have to do your best to address it. Tua seems like hell-bent on continuing to play. This hip injury thing is actually really concerning to me because we all know the issues that he has with concussions, but this was the actual question mark that we had about him when he entered the draft. It's why he wasn't, the number one consensus pick like he was being discussed about when he was at Alabama, is because it was a devastating injury.
In fairness to the Dolphins, it's tough to have a backup plan when you're dealing with Tua. This is fairly unprecedented, right? Like quarterbacks are going to be hesitant to come here because if Tua is healthy, Billy, he's going to play all 17 games. So you're coming here for what? In the event that he gets concussed again and you get a chance to go in?
In the Sam Darnold event. In the event that Sam Darnold can take a job because your quarterback, that's probability stuff. That's what Kenny Pickett did.
The league is full of people that have backup plans.
I know, but you have to be sure that you're right on that plan. It's not Skylar Thompson. You have to be sure you're going to get it right if you're going to have a backup plan for Tua.
They bet big because of their salary cap situation. They didn't want to tie any more salary cap into that room outside of Tua, and they got it wrong.
Guys, it can't be. The season ends and we're talking about the backup quarterback. That's
part of why the season ended yesterday.
Look, there's plenty of places to blame 1,000 different things. What I'm saying to you is there's no winners talking about their backup quarterback situation right now.
Well, no, the winners are talking about the playoff games, so we don't have a playoff game to talk about.
It can't be you tell us that it has nothing to do with structure. And the most important thing in the structure is you needed a better plan at backup quarterback. That's fine. It's fine as an analysis. Yes, they could have won 3 more games. And what? Gotten dragged by Buffalo again? Because they can't beat Buffalo? And their quarterback doesn't get hurt because he's not made of balsa wood. Their quarterback never gets hurt.
Right.
What was up with the sunglasses yesterday? Yeah. I mean, we're throwing out some fodder for conspiracies when we're wearing sunglasses at night when we have a history of concussion issues, correct? And then we all of a sudden have a hip injury that just appeared 2 weeks ago. It didn't seem like a big deal, and then all of a sudden it's maybe a partial tear of a muscle, and if he plays, then it's a full tear. But then again, we're wearing sunglasses at night because of the lighting in the stadium, which is you're setting it up for people to assume that there was a secret concussion, right? Like I'm just going to put out there what people were saying. That was the chatter. People were wondering, was there another concussion issue that we're just going to say was a hip issue because we don't want to have that conversation again?
This is a good conspiracy right here. Like if you want to be just totally irresponsible on this, let's see what we can do here. Yeah.
Time to throw away all journalistic credibility and get reckless. Here is something we like to call reckless speculation.
You're good.
You're good, Billy.
Oh, we're good. I'm just asking. I'm not saying anything. It's just that there was chatter out there. Maybe there's something more to this injury than what was let on. And I'm not insinuating anyone's fudging any incidents reports or any health records. That's it's unheard of in the NFL.
What just happened?
No one would
Wait a
do
minute.
that
You were
situation.
reckless before. I played the
seconds.
sounder,
Fake concussion.
and then you start.
Well, he was
backpedaling.
reckless before you hit the reckless sound, and then you hit the reckless sound. I understand why he's confused.
I thought you were going to add on to this situation.
Exactly.
I kind of tiptoed around it.
Yes.
He may have a concussion.
Right. There we go.
Maybe.
Yeah. Right.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Maybe.
sure that would break all of the rules of football and whatever it is that they're pretending to do. When
Not
they
if you have a
pretend
hip
to care
injury.
about the health
I
of
mean, he has
his
a hip
athletes.
injury. What is he going to
Right.
do? Partially torn if he plays again, and maybe fully torn. That's what they told us. Even though they didn't tell us that like a week ago, right? A week ago, it was like, maybe he'll be back.
The
next
hip
week.
did come out of nowhere, even though it didn't come out of nowhere, because Mike's not wrong when he says it was the thing. It seems like so long ago that's the thing we were worried about.
The sunglasses, though, didn't cross your mind yesterday when you saw it?
In Tua's defense, it was 4:25 start, not nighttime.
No, but in New York, it was nighttime. It's nighttime there. It was dark out. Like, the sunglasses were not because of the sun. What were they for? Fashion?
You know that was.
He did look cool.
You know that was the third best Jets quarterback season in franchise history.
Yep. Saved his best for last. I mean, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions.
I think you could talk yourself into bringing him back next season.
I already have. I mean, see how good he looked yesterday?
He gave you just enough. Don't worry about the fact that Miami saw the score of the Broncos game and was like, whatever. That doesn't matter.
He was pretty good the second half of the season.
Really good.
Not terrible. He looked healthier. He looked healthier. I do want to circle back around, though, to the backup quarterback thing, because I was reminded yesterday, I don't know how many of you needed this reminder, that Jessica's beloved Trubisky was the backup in Buffalo, and that they went out there with their backup.
That's what Week 18 is all about, Dan. You find out where all the bad quarterbacks are playing. I mean,
but when we're talking about physical sturdiness at the position, you realize that the Dolphins have spent 20 years trying to topple quarterbacks at the top of that division who don't get hurt. Like Brady was gone for one season, and the Patriots still went 11-5 with Matt Castle. But once you get to the backup quarterback, Stugotz, the Chiefs aren't good without Mahomes. Like Wentz, you could get 6 games out of Wentz, and what do you think that's going to look like? Like they're going to fall apart. It's going to look like what you just saw in Denver, because they're backups for a reason. And so I'm just dismayed by sitting here talking about the Dolphins after another one of these, when the expectations, you guys dared to hope again. We dared to believe again. The expectations were in a place, they'll win a playoff game with the genius boy wonder coach who can turn that into a quarterback. But then you're reminded that football injures people, and that in the league, he's got the reputation more than any of them on. It's not going to be Baker Mayfield. Like, it's not going to be one. More. Who's second on this list of this guy's going to get hurt? Like, you can't trust that.
It sounds crazy, but it might be Mahomes. I mean,
it's not Mahomes.
I mean, Dan,
Baker
doesn't get hurt. Stafford maybe.
Anthony Richardson.
This is the year to get the Chiefs.
5 minutes forward. Talking about the Chiefs.
Indestructible.
The year to get him.
Stafford's indestructible.
Bunch of cowards. It's Mahomes. He fakes that ankle injury every year.
He does lead the league in tweaks that he plays through and looks better after tweaking something.
I think Baker Mayfield does.
Wow.
Did anyone?
Baker Mayfield, you're saying?
No, Burrow gets more hurt than Baker.
Did anyone feel gross yesterday watching Week 18? It was just something about it. It's like the first, like Week 1,
Week 18.
I'm just like, I feel good watching like Red Zone.
It was the Sunday scaries combined with some truly meaningless games.
That's probably what it was. Coming back to work after a 2-week break, yesterday I was just like, I don't want to be watching this, but I'm watching it, and it's just like playoff contention, all these seeding. The Dolphins are in it, even though they have no godforsaken chance.
I watched Cardinals Niners for a little bit, and I was like, why am I doing this? And then I watched the end of Jets Dolphins because it was the last game on, and I was like, again, why am I doing this?
Were you doing it because you needed 178 yards from Marvin Harrison to cash a future?
No, I just needed something to occupy my eyes while I sat on the couch with a heating pad on my tummy.
If he was playing the Saints, Harrison would have got that. I mean, geez, just Chan Hill Park over here.
I am with Chris Cody on yesterday felt a little football gross. Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Because it's all of it. It's you gorge college football, the holidays. God knows how much chocolate you've eaten. I've been watching you.
It's the 18th one of these in a row. Just like, ugh, just get me to the playoffs already. I don't need another. I'm just over Scott Hansen at this point. Just for this one, like, I love Scott Hansen. I don't want like that to get. I love you, Scott Hansen.
I don't
but
think
just
he knows
yesterday,
who you are.
I was just like, ugh, get away.
By the way, friendly reminder: cancel your Red Zone today, so that you're not paying for it for 6 months when it's an inactive channel. Dan, did you just say that you just like watch people eat chocolate? Like you're like an elf on the shelf that you just show up at people's house when they're eating chocolate, watching them?
Yes, I've been watching you with my new anus.
He did send me a picture of people like eating cookies in the kitchen a few weeks ago where they didn't know he was taking pictures of them. It was a little sketchy. Yeah.
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Have you eaten too many cookies and too much chocolate over the last 2 weeks? But this is part of it. I did. And did you feel football gross yesterday? Because I'm with Chris Cody on this. I'm like, I'm admiring McBride. I'm like, that's a 12-yard run. And he just jumped way up in the sky. And these guys are all basketball players. And I don't know how any of them do anything. I shouldn't be watching this anymore. This is not healthy for me. This has not been a healthy 2 weeks.
I felt gross. I put in an incentives parlay. Everyone, like all the incentives out there, hardly any of them came in. It was just a gross day. Just people playing football only to make money. Mike Evans. Just
for the love of the game.
What do you think they're doing the other 17
They weren't
weeks
doing
of the year?
it. They're not though.
They're not playing just for money?
The incentives though, like it felt a little gross.
No,
yesterday.
Geno Smith. That was kind of a cool story.
The Mike Evans one is one of the coolest things I've ever seen involving money in sports.
Yeah, I take it back. Awesome. Yesterday was awesome.
I mean, Chan-Ho,
it was a great
the Saints
day.
kind of handed him that last play, but does that take away from it at all?
Dan has a great take about what should have happened on that last play because the game was in hand and there was only one thing to do. And it was a really cool way to end the game because you have the compounded emotions of we've made the playoffs, we've won this game, we've completed the comeback, and we got Mike this record. But Dan has the best take.
Do me a favor, please. Find me David Samson so that I can just ask him what he would do in management if instead of victory formation, the game was over and they'd won the division. In victory formation, the Bucs ran a play that everyone in the stadium and everyone watching knew was meant to get Mike Evans a few more yards so that he could be a Hall of Fame receiver with 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons and hit an incentive clause with a throw that was for $3 million at the end of a one game. They should have just knelt. If you're the Saints, if you have a rivalry in the division, you've got to send all 11 men at Mike Evans. All 11 of your defenders have to, and just say, I was trying to get the ball. I need to win the game. If you're not going to victory formation me, my entire defense, and we're pass interfering, and it's just all 11 of our men are not going to allow you to get him this nice moment.
They were doubling him like all game. Like it seemed like their mission was to cost him money the entire game for some reason.
And I guarantee you, even if they put all 11 guys on Mike Evans,
Baker's
still going to try to move that one. Like he's still going to find the window.
Sub 500 seasons, it's been lonely. Now the best players on our side. Been losing and losing for much too long. But now we're back with New York pride. Jalen, you've got us on our feet. Jalen, we're gonna win the East. Jalen. Without Randall, we're still doing fine.
There was no need for pepper spray to be rained down on me. And I sustained wartime left eye injury. Ohio State sucks drama, you lost, that's the deal. The video clearly shows, with my eye almost blinded, there's Harry and Lucy laughing.
Baby, I can tell you that I'm pissed they did rose with the spray. Oh, she sounded like a goose who stepped on with heels, yeah. Even though Rose was in June, there's Harry and Lucy laughing.
Even though I wasn't doomed, there's Harry and Lucy laughing.
Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. Thank you.
Sub 500 seasons, it's been lonely. Now the best players on our side. Been losing and losing for much too long. But now we're back with New York pride. Jalen, you've got us on our feet, Jalen. We're gonna win the East, Jalen. Without Randall, we're still doing fine.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Would you guys be kind enough, please, to put up that video of David Samson wrestling a sumo wrestler? I want to put that up for people. I'd like for that to run in the picture-in-picture during the questions that I have to ask David Samson. That, of course, is the video of the Houston Rockets fighting Tyler Hero. And David Samson broke his toe during that at some point as well, which seems a great way to, have a walking tour of Japan with a broken toe. Samson, thank you for being on with us. The reason we're having you on is because I want to talk to you about this Mike Evans thing. You guys thought that was cool, right? That was one of to see Mike Evans happier than you've ever seen him in a Hall of Fame career, because these guys are playing for money. And to see it because it's a $3 million catch and see everyone be happy for him was a really cool moment.
Well, the record, too, itself seemed like one of those unattainable records in NFL history. Whenever you look at the NFL receiving records, Jerry Rice owns damn near everything, and it seems like it's impossible to catch. And he did that, and it was just like a confluence of emotions. You won the game, you put it away, you clinch a playoff spot, and as a walk-off, you get your franchise's greatest receiver that crowning moment. It was really hyped to see, and somehow still the second best way an athlete has ever left the field to play for that franchise.
I have a different way of asking this question to David, and I feel like I'm going to connect with him here. David, why did you hate that moment so much as a former executive, and what is your best story of making sure your players did not reach their incentives?
Mm-hmm. And why do you look like Bono?
You just release them. No, George Michael, not Bono. you release him. You move him to the bullpen. If he's got an incentive based on games started or games finished, you don't let him finish games. There's no reason to have thrown $3 million away. I'd rather save it and use it to increase fan amenities or use it to do something else with the player the next season. It was a wasted $3 million.
Dan, can you imagine if before a must-win game to get them to the playoffs, the Buccaneers last week cut Mike Evans?
That's right. Samson, come on.
You don't think they're going to make that back in merch opportunities?
Samson, come on.
Come on, man.
Does our merch store make $3 million?
Dude,
come on,
you're
give
trying
me a
to
break.
resell tickets, physical tickets, to a Roy Halladay perfect game after the fact. I think the Bucs, in the biggest sport in the country, can find a way to pull $3 million of a return on that investment.
I'm not begrudging paying Mike Evans. I think that he breaking the record at tying the Jerry Rice record, outstanding. But let me tell you the scenario that would make me insane, which is when you can kneel and win a game, you don't run a play. Could it be Joe Pisarcik? Probably not. Could there be some sort of something that could have happened? The odds are infinitesimal. But why even take the chance? There was no upside at all. If you want to give Mike Evans $3 million as a thank you, cut him a check. But you don't do it right at the end when you're about to make the playoffs.
So if you run the Buffalo Bills and you see Sean McDermott punting the ball from from the 36-yard line so that his punter gets a $100,000 bonus, it's great for Sean McDermott's relationship with all of his players. I imagine, as an executive, you would not like that. And would you have a talking to with Sean McDermott after the fact?
Well, those conversations all happened before the game. So you read about all the players and the incentives. You saw what Jerry Jones did. He didn't play rush. We're not going to take the chance to give him $250. We meet with the coach or the manager and go through every game. We go through what incentives players are on the track to achieving. And going into week 18, you know in advance, Sean McDermott did not give him, because he had to get it down within the 20. And it was just a give me punt to get him that in order to get the bonus. At the end of the day, he's gotten permission from that, because if not, that is truly a fireable offense.
In fairness to David, can you imagine, Dan, if it was a pick six? I mean,
he gets tipped at the line.
They convert the two.
Many years ago, I remember Edgerrin James. I did a magazine story with him, and he said at a victory formation that he and Peyton agreed, and it made Jim Mora insane. Victory formation, hand Edgerrin James the ball. He ran for a touchdown, and he said, if you don't want me playing for money, don't put those incentives in my contract. He simply defied his coach. David, you are running the Tampa Bay Bucs last week. You're not serious about waiving Mike Evans, but as that last play approaches, you are making sure that your coach knows that he is not to get that player the $3 million? Like, you're interfering like that?
100%. That's all discussed. That's why I don't want to make a bigger issue of this than it is. They knew, eyes were wide open, that they were running that play. If it comes out in any way that that play was run without the acquiescence of the front office and ownership, that is game over. So I'm going to assume the best, that they wanted to reward Mike Evans with that. But that sort of play at the end, again, you joke about it, but what if it had been? They weren't playing for nothing. They were playing to make the playoffs, which is all that matters. And is it likely? No. Is it possible? Yes. It drove me insane.
What does game over mean there?
It's game over. I would move on. I'd move on from all of them.
You'd waive everybody?
They have a playoff game to play.
You have a game next week.
You'd fire everybody
get rid of every
before the
last
playoff.
damn
Come
one
on,
of them if you're
Samson.
telling
You
me.
would have Kyle
that they
Trask
do it.
starting?
Come on, Samson.
Guys, I promise you have this wrong. The Buccaneers had it planned to allow for him to get the $3 million, and if that was planned,
what's wrong with
great,
that?
good for him.
It's a beautiful sports moment. Like, everyone, when is everyone happy for an athlete making a lot of money? When does that happen?
Every single year, Dan. There's all sorts of times when Josh Allen goes in the game to keep a consecutive game streak going and he does a handoff. That's part of a plan. You plan it all. I'm not begrudging. I'm not the damn Grinch, Dan. I'm just telling you how it works. All of it gets discussed in advance.
What's going on with the glasses? You bought them. How much did they cost? You said you were going to get them at auction. What's the story?
These are worn by George Michael at a concert. So these are George Michael's concert-worn glasses, and I just got them. They happen to fit me perfectly, and I'm just deciding I'm not going to put them on a shelf. I'm going to wear them.
You are?
I am. You don't think I look good in these?
No.
I don't think people would say that those look like you. Well, it might be the ensemble. You might need to put something on different than a sports coat.
But if you're looking to maintain the value, I'm not certain wearing them is the best idea. Maybe you don't care about the value. They're yours.
I'm
right?
not selling this. I got an offer, by the way. Anyway, doesn't matter. Memorabilia is not to be sold. Now, what about these? Do you want me to go with the Elton John glasses instead? Elton John glasses, game worn. Ooh,
that looks better. That looks better.
Are they prescription?
No, I love where your head's at because I checked before bidding because you can't wear them if they're prescription.
What do you mean you can't wear them if they're prescription?
Just change the lenses.
What do you mean?
Well, why would you? They're not game worn by him then. I mean, they are, but it's like, they changed the lens. I wouldn't want that. I want the lens in there. What do you want to wear Elton John's glasses for with no prescription?
Because these are sunglasses. What are you even talking about? I got the memorabilia so I can engage with it and wear it and enjoy it. Meanwhile, my toes throbbing. I've got bally belly. Are we covering more stuff here?
Which player did you screw over? You didn't tell us that.
Yeah,
yet.
you didn't tell us which player you screwed over on an incentive.
I'm happy to get back to you on Wednesday. I'll get the full list of every player who we didn't let reach incentives. My guess is it's about a dozen players.
Oh, wow, a top 12.
Okay, so you got a top
Well, then no, but also I want a list of all the fan amenities you approved with that. You improved with that money.
No, we used it to get payroll. You're misunderstanding, which is fun for the show if you want to do it as a bit. But we're not the only front office who pays attention to this stuff. Players in baseball get released every year. Their jobs get changed. They move from starter to reliever. All of this happens because you're keeping an eye on what the incentive levels are. And the NFL is just a joke. Week 18, there's a list of 10 players doing a bunch of random crap in order to get extra money. Give it to them in base salary. Don't do it in these incentives that all of a sudden take away from the game. Forget it.
So you're saying that the Bucs front office, when that play happened and the crowd is going crazy and the sideline's going crazy, there's an executive up there physically groaning.
Oh no, I'm not saying that because they approved it. If they hadn't approved it, he's doing more than groaning. He's calling the HR attorney. But I assume it was approved.
Of all the Elton John glasses, you found the tamest ones. I feel like they look the most like normal glasses.
Yeah, I was looking for that because I didn't think that I could wear around I can't pull the star ones and all of the crazy Elton John glasses.
No.
So I wanted ones that looked actually decent. But the George Michael ones are my true love. There's no question. There's also a third thing, which I'm not going to show you right now because I'm hesitant to unpack it. But a third thing that I got, and it was waiting for me when I got back from the trip. I can't wait to show you. Maybe I'll unveil it on Wednesday, but that's going to require gloves. I have to wear
All right,
gloves.
we're doing both of those things on Wednesday. Get your top 12 players you've screwed out of incentive money.
Very exciting.
And get that for Wednesday as well. Your broken toe situation. What happened?
So I just got stupid. I volunteered. I forgot that I was 56. I went to a sumo wrestling and I was asked would I want to volunteer to sumo wrestle a sumo wrestler, and I said of course. And so I went after him. I couldn't move him. As you see, he's about 400 pounds, about 6'5", and then he twirled me around like a rag doll, and then when he twisted me here, my right big toe got stuck under, and I ended up having to go to the hospital in Tokyo in order to have it taken care of, sort of like a lost in translation moment. But my toe, it's an absolute disaster, and it's staggering how much you need your big toe to walk.
Did you sue him or what?
Put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Is it staggering how much you need your big toe to walk? And Chris, you've never done better on interrogation questions. That what does game over mean there? Because him doubling down on I'd fire everybody before a playoff game and waive all the players is one of the most asinine things I've ever heard.
A home playoff game. I mean, he gets the gates.
Well, a very important distinction. Thank you, Stugotz. A
And
home
Dan,
playoff
give
game.
the full distinction, Dan. You're not being fair. I said if they didn't know in advance and approve it in advance. Put that caveat.
But yes, I'd put that caveat, except you wouldn't approve it in advance.
No, I would not.
Like that's the part that's asinine. Like that's the part that will make the players not want to play for your organization.
Oh, because Mike Evans is playing for the Buccaneers organization. He's happier getting the extra $3 million if they won a damn Super Bowl. The players are all happy. Do you know the players keep track also of their own incentives and of their teammates' incentives?
Yes.
And they all work together in order to get that for themselves, which causes the front office to work against them to stop them from happening.
I don't think that you're going to get people on your side with this, David.
I'm not asking for anyone to be on my side. I'm asking you just to understand how it actually works. Believe me, Billy, if you were paid an incentive to do a 240th show and you were getting an extra $500K, I promise you, you would not be on the schedule for a 240th show.
I
true.
believe you.
That's not true.
I'm here Monday through
That
Wednesday.
is not true. That is brutal. Samson, get out of here. Nothing personal with David Samson is the podcast. It's very popular, and it's every day, 8 a.m. Eastern. I want to get to Jeremy Taché, who I imagine is infuriated by everything going on around the Heat and the conversation around the Heat. But first, let's play for everybody the Paul Pierce sound, because there are a lot of people right now taking victory laps because this is the disaster scenario for the Miami Heat. You're going to get Jimmy Butler cheapened with every day when you could have gotten some of this solved earlier than now. You're going to lose him for something that probably doesn't have very much value. And you needed to get something for him, and everyone saw this coming. And so we'll get to Jeremy in a second, but let's first play the Paul Pierce sound on him going after Pat Riley, because Stugotz, I would say for the first time in a long time, it is open season on Pat Riley. Jimmy Butler's not the loser here. People will get mad about his behavior, or they'll get mad at the league because how can you not have joy in your game when they're paying you $50 million? But he ran the playbook. Like, this is how you get out of town. This is how the Heat didn't get Dame Lillard, because Dame Lillard wouldn't do all of this. Like, you got to be illness, not trying, I'm going to go publicly and say things. You got to make a mess.
Jimmy really wants it. He does. I mean, Dame didn't want it enough, and Jimmy really wants this. He wants out of Miami, and he's taking all the necessary steps to get himself out.
Let's play that Paul Pierce sound, please.
When you look at when Heat culture started, when Shaq and Lonzo and Haslam and Wade and all got there, look what he's done to a star player since Heat culture started. He ran Shaq out of town. You ran LeBron out of town. You ran D. Wade out of town, of all people. One who drafted, you won your first championship with. Then you kind of try to make up for it. Now you running Jimmy Butler out of town. This, to me, tells me that Heat culture lives and dies with Pat Riley, and if he doesn't change the way he is, being, kind of like stubborn and don't want to pay guys and it's his way or the highway, then I don't see Heat culture being the same any longer.
Jeremy, I want to hear from you and Mike Ryan on this. I've talked enough, and I've already broken my New Year's resolution for the record 40th straight year. I cannot get my tone right when discussing things. So it's 40 years now, a New Year's resolution.
Hell of a streak,
broken and a couple of days in. But I want you, Jeremy, Jeremy and Mike represent different parts of this fan base. Mike's been fed up for years, and Jeremy's been carrying water for years. Jeremy, the floor is yours. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, happy January 6th, Dan. It's a real shitty situation, which, speaking of, I heard it smells a lot like poop over there, so that's not fun. But look, this is listening to Paul Pierce say things about Heat culture and running players out of town when the Celtics are what they are now simply because of the trade package that they received for Paul Pierce at the end of his career is one thing. But this situation did escalate from the place when you say everyone saw this coming. No one saw this specific thing in the middle of the season coming, including Jimmy Butler, who showed up day one to Heat camp and said, an extension, that's just money. I've made enough money in my career. He said of everything Pat Riley talked about him over the summer, I'm here to play games. Pat was right. He came in with that sort of attitude. It's the reason everyone anticipated this would all at least play out over the course of a season. And if you wanted to argue that, like Mike did, that this team as constructed wouldn't be competitive enough to win a championship, you can feel perfectly validated today. And you can feel validated about where this all goes. But this has little to nothing to do with acquisitions made or not made over the span of the last few years. It has everything to do with a contract extension. It all comes down to the money. If the contract extension would have been offered this past summer, Jimmy Butler would still be perfectly happy playing for the Miami Heat, and nothing would be any different outside of our arguments about whether or not the roster was
No,
good
something else would be different. They could trade him now for value if they'd done that.
They would not.
But now they're bleeding.
If he had a contract extension, I would argue that his value would be worse. If Jimmy decided with money already signed, it would be worse off for the Heat, at least right now.
You think that if he got an extension of 3 years, you believe he'd have less value than he does right now?
If Jimmy Butler got an extension, either he never would have said anything and he would have finished out his career in Miami like he said he was going to do, or there would be teams all around the league looking at a Jimmy Butler at his age and saying, I'm not sure I want to trade for a max player. I mean, Mike, I would have to think on that front you would agree.
Oh, I think he certainly has a lot more value, because part of this value is teams would be looking at him as a rental. This is an expiring deal. It comes off our books. Maybe someone gives him his extension. I don't have a doubt that he's going to get a big money deal that'll satisfy him. It may not be to the team that he gets traded to, but in terms of what you can get back, you get more back because he's an expiring deal at his age.
Right.
Oh, see, I would have argued, I understand what you're saying about the value of an expiring contract, but I would value, if I were Pat Riley, the flexibility of, if I've got Jimmy long-term and I can then trade him after 6 months because I've changed my mind on what it is that, like, I'm not agreeing to no trade extension with Jimmy. Jimmy, you want your money? That's fine, but at any point I can trade you. I would think that would still have value for a Golden State trying to win in Steph Curry's window.
Especially for a Golden State, the value for me is that I don't have a commitment beyond this year, and I can make another run with it. I completely agree with Jeremy, by the way. It doesn't matter. Like, yeah, they could have gotten Damian Lillard. Hell, they could have won Larry 1 year. Jimmy was going to be mad no matter what if he didn't get his extension. And the Heat was always going to resent him for going along with a plan that runs counterculture. Okay, we'll save your body. We'll follow this along. We'll pay you to not play, but come the playoffs, you got to be that Jimmy Butler guy again. And he got injured in the play-in tournament, and it blew up in their face, and they were at their wits' ends with it. Maybe a misstep by Pat Riley before the season. I think we've all been kind of playing chess. And yes, Jeremy, I get what you're saying. You said he showed up day one. He actually didn't. He showed up late to media day. Like, they have their public comments that seemed relatively aligned, even after Jimmy Butler was saying, damn, purple and gold, that looks good. This was all a cat and mouse game. And I think Dane was absolutely right to say Pat Riley checkmated himself. I think, number one, it was pretty tone deaf by putting that statement out, because half the fan base, by the time that thing came out, was pretty divided on whether or not you keep things going with this. And also, you back Jimmy Butler into a corner, and Jimmy Butler's the greatest ever at blowing things up and getting his way and being able to force his way out of a franchise. And you made that be the only move, which in turn probably affects the return that you're going to have on him.
I just ask everyone to examine what the last 10 years Stugotz have been since Pat Riley sort of got stood up by LeBron James in that Las Vegas hotel room. He's outside with the championship trophies. He's got to make a recruiting pitch. LeBron is in the room watching the World Cup, feet on a table with his friends, because they were about to take over the next 10 years of the league, and they knew it. And from there, what ends up happening right now has no precedent in Pat Riley's history or in the Miami Heat's history. This sequence of things: public mess, says out loud on comment, because the Heat don't comment on this stuff. He's not being traded. A week later has to totally change it because the dynamics in this sport have changed. This mess has never existed under Pat Riley.
And you could probably understand why opposing fans say, good. Yeah, they deserve this, because their whole talent acquisition strategy seems to be have the other superstars somewhere else make this kind of mess, and we could be there to pick up the pieces. And you were playing with fire when you brought Jimmy Butler in, knowing his history, and it's finally happened to them.
They built something around Jimmy in a way that no other franchise has for him throughout his entire career. And when I say built it around him, I mean he got to be Jimmy in every manner in which you could be Jimmy Butler. Like he was given sort of privileges in a way that a lot of other star players have not in Miami over the course of, I mean, we're talking about the big three. We're talking about Shaq and Wade when they were together. We're talking before that. they built this whole thing around him and led him to a ton of success. I mean, in those first couple of years, they did try to cash in at deadlines and make moves to acquire guys. For that matter, they got to the finals because of a move that they made in the first year that Jimmy Butler was here to acquire Andre Iguodala and Jay Crowder and make a run. They could have won the finals if they had not had Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic get hurt. So they built it around him. It's just here at the end, no matter the moves that were going to be made, it comes down to a contract dispute. And I think the obvious change is in that Pat Riley statement. When he says we're not trading Jimmy Butler, it's because the clear and obvious understanding from every party involved going into the year was, look, clearly this is just going to have to play out over the course of the year and we'll deal with it in the offseason. I don't think the Heat ever anticipated, after everything that their relationship has been, contentious or not at any given moment, they kind of liked butting heads throughout a lot of this. They liked the on-court arguments where UD's breaking up Spo and Butler. It's how they all click and how they all tick. It's fine. But now, at the end, this is more of an in-season public mess than they ever anticipated that Jimmy Butler would make. And maybe they're wrong to not anticipate it because of the way some of these other things have ended.
Not maybe.
But I think they thought they could get through.
Jeremy,
They're wrong.
Jeremy,
They should have seen it coming.
Jeremy, not maybe. We'll let you go on that note. But I don't think the Heat ever anticipated. The job is to anticipate. They've been left behind because the other people in their conference have anticipated. Like, it's the job. Like, you can't be leading and not ever anticipate and not have it be a blemish on your resume.
Well, the anticipation, they controlled the situation going into the season by not offering an extension and giving themselves the flexibility that if things didn't go well this year, Jimmy Butler would either opt in and they could trade it, or he would opt out and they would get all of that money off of the books. After all of the respect that did exist between these two parties over the last 5 years, after everything that they did to sort of cater to what it was that Jimmy Butler wanted, the only thing that they really missed out on was that Damian Lillard trade. All of the other ones were just conjecture. This is not an ending that any star in the league has made outside of James Harden. No one does this mid-season in the way that Jimmy Butler has. And sure, you can say that they were wrong to not anticipate that. But they believed, or at least I believe, that they felt in the type of control with his contract situation that they would be able to move it one way or another, even if it was at this deadline. But a major stink like this a month before it, I don't know that anyone should anticipate that, considering what the relationship was for the last 5 years.
All right. Happy New Anus. Thank you for being on the show. Appreciate your time.
Happy New Anus to you.
I have a number of things that I want to get to here, Stugotz, because it isn't just that this has no precedent in my lifetime with the Miami Heat, a notoriously private organization that doesn't let these things spill out in public. Yes, Billy?
Jimmy should be happy because they went out and got him Jay Crowder. Like, what are we doing?
Jimmy should be happy, though, that they turned Jimmy, a guy who was perceived as, hey, if he's your third or fourth best player, you have a good team. If he's your best player, you don't have a very good team. I mean, the Heat did turn him into a superstar.
Jimmy had a say in that.
Well, Jimmy did have a say in
the
it.
Playoffs.
I know, but the Heat can always chalk that thing up to like Heat culture. He played his best basketball when he was here because of us.
Who do we think did more for the other one? Jimmy for the Heat or the Heat for Jimmy?
It was a great.
I think
it was
an
a great relationship.
An
It was
argument
for both.
can be made that Jimmy did more for the Heat than any other player in taking them to two finals basically by himself.
Yeah, but we were having the questions, is Jimmy Butler a superstar
Right.
before the Heat acquired him? And then he left little doubt through his own performance, I might add, in the playoffs. Also, just as like a on-air community note, it's mighty convenient for Jeremy to sweep aside some of the other failures in their talent acquisition pursuits as conjecture. No, they failed when it came to Kevin Durant. They failed twice. They failed their entire time down here. And I think that the biggest misstep here in this franchise is they kept playing this game of chicken, and now Pat Riley has so little leverage because this is an absolute tire fire, and it's a tire fire in part because Pat Riley sauntered in and put out a statement thinking that it was 1997 again, totally not reading the room, totally not understanding that Shams had a better beat on what was going on than he did. I think, yes, you can totally criticize their lack of foresight here. When Shams is out there, who isn't wrong, reporting what's going on in your house, and you're defiant, and you're pounding the table, and you put out a statement, and then you put the guy who you don't put into a corner, and you have zero leverage now. Zero. Zilch. You mishandled this situation.
I will say again, before we get to the palate cleansing of a Heat song, I will say again that it was, and I know these things get noisy and messy, it was a very good marriage for both sides. Jimmy Butler didn't get as far in Philadelphia, Minnesota, or Chicago as he did here. When he got here, we all doubted whether that was the move we thought it was, and good God, it was a fun era of basketball for the Miami Heat. Everybody won except in the way of the standard of today, which is you got to win the whole thing, which makes the Dolphins a failure every year but 3, and makes the Heat a failure every year but 3. The Panthers are a failure every year but 1. The Marlins are a failure every year but 2.
Hold on a second. They're saving their money. Spend wisely.
Yeah. This is like when Tom Brady and Giselle put out a joint statement. This is not a failed marriage. It's a very successful marriage. We had a lot that we're proud of and we achieved. And I would look back on the Jimmy Butler say wild success, outperformed. Let's put that to the side, though. Pat Riley, as president of this franchise, has a duty to maximize the haul for Jimmy Butler. And he misstepped several times here, and now he's got zero leverage.
That is part of the problem, but only part of the problem, Stugotz, because the gulf between where Boston is and where Miami is now in the conference, when this, I said 4 years ago they met at the rim. Bam Adebayo is a shell of himself. They've got Tyler Hero playing the All-Star basketball, and if he's your best player, you'll be 500. Congratulations, you're the Hawks.
He needs to bulk up a little bit. You can't be thrown around like that.
Right. It's not just the Celtics, by the way. I mean, it's the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers are 31-4.
That's right.
I know they got injured, but it was also the Magic within your own division, a team that is a relative punchline to you that you never even entered a season thinking about.
And then, as soon as this becomes a mess with Jimmy Butler, you lose by 36 at home to the Utah Jazz, who have 7 victories this season. You have your worst loss of the season right after that, and now you've got a West Coast trip. And when we talk about the strategy, Stugotz, of how it is that you get maneuvered on things, when I'm hearing Jeremy, the Heat could have never expected. And I hear Mike Ryan saying, we saw all of this happening. It was all headed here with this player. We know who this player is. You should know better than anybody who and what this player is. Mike Ryan's mad at the Miami Heat media. We've got Barry Jackson fighting people in a way I've never seen Barry Jackson from the Miami Herald fight people.
Oh, I love this Barry Jackson. By the way, the Jazz are up to 9 wins now.
They got a big hot streak. Put up the Barry Jackson tweet real quick here, but Mike's mad at the Miami Heat media because the Miami Heat media has been real light all around this.
Isn't it possible, though, that the Heat, when they acquired Jimmy Butler, thought to themselves, we're never going to have to build around Jimmy Butler? Like, they didn't expect it because Jimmy Butler was not the guy that he's been since he's been here.
They needed to get a player in his 5 years better than Jimmy Butler. That's what they had to do, and they failed to do that. I'm not even sure Pat Riley would disagree with that.
And Jay Crowder.
The Heat media thing is a little funny in that, look, I am certainly was a willing participant in carrying water for this franchise, but then the Damian Lillard thing happened, and I realized, we're just a pawn, and we are willing and able mouthpieces for this franchise, and I can't disassociate my hand in that wrongdoing. So that was a eye-opening experience.
Me neither, by the way.
It was an eye-opening experience for me, and we did this entire just ridiculous season where we know where this is all headed. We're going to spend 2 years just treading water. Let's at least speak the truth. Let's at least acknowledge our missteps. And there are just certain aspects of Heat media that refuse, that they're just going to carry water all the way. And what I hated the most about this whole Jimmy Butler thing is they turned on a dime the second Jimmy did that thing, which in my mind changed nothing. It was just speaking it out there. All it changed was Miami's leverage and the return that they were going to get on this. Zero foresight. Or they just turned a blind eye to it. And for them to so willingly and transparently just turn on Jimmy Butler after people were saying these things for months and months and months, and they were the first people in your mentions to go at you, it's just a bad look. And, like, no public capitulation for them, no accountability. They just keep it moving. And it was one of the things that turned me off to this whole franchise and its fandom. Like, they need to rebuild their whole mantra. They need to rebuild this whole franchise. And they're off to a terrible start. Because trading Jimmy Butler could actually help rebuild your franchise, could actually bring back assets. But you wanted to pound your chest and be the godfather one more time, even though you went to high school the same time Joe Biden did. And you just totally misplayed it because you thought you knew better than the best information guy in the sport.
It was a good high school.
Pat Riley joining us on South Beach Sessions this week.
Oh, nice. Are you saying the game has passed Riley by? Is that
I'm
just,
saying
just
that
so we're clear?
I'm saying if you want to make that argument,
Be careful.
If you want to make
Be
that
careful.
argument, Pat Riley can say here as long as he likes, he deserves to be, and he can to his last breath, he
nice of
deserves
you.
what he did to this franchise. Like, he deserves to go out on his terms. But he totally botched this Jimmy Butler thing, and he has for years.
Why did I catch a stray there?
Let's go out to the Barry Jackson room where Izzy Gutierrez joins us as a lifetime
Naming rights,
observer of Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. Again, Barry Jackson is in.
odd room.
It is. It's the Barry Jackson room. Billy, why are you making faces at the Barry Jackson room?
I didn't know we had a Barry Jackson.
Yeah, we do have a Barry Jackson room.
There too.
I mean, we're happy about it.
Meadowlark is expanding. Explain to people, Izzy, how long have you known Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald?
I've known Barry since, I believe, the year 2000.
Okay, so what can you tell us about Barry Jackson and when he writes, go back in your jock-sniffing hole instead of questioning integrity of multi-time winner of Sports Writer of Year Award.
Yeah.
Have a nice day. What is happening there? Break it down. Izzy Gutierrez in the Barry Jackson room.
Well, first of all, I thought you were going to put me in a jock-sniffing hole. Instead, I'm surrounded by Barry Jackson's not the best situation here. But look, I think you can tell where the Heat are in their whole building, rebuilding phase, whatever they are, just based on Barry Jackson's reactions, okay? You've talked about Barry on the show before. He's been doing this forever. He's the intrepid reporter. This is the reason why he's shown up on the show. He's just a little bee. He'll just be anywhere that you need him to be, okay? But this is not the LeBron era. This is not the Dwayne Wade and Shaq era. He doesn't have to treat this the way he treated those. This is the Jimmy Butler era. This is the third best iteration of this team that Pat Riley has put together. So now it's Jimmy's time. Okay, whatever. Do you know how many franchises would have loved this 6-year stretch? Would have been the best 6-year stretch of their entire franchise. For Pat Riley, it's light work. Oh, I've got to get rid of him now? Nobody thought I could even get him. And you want to talk about full circle moments. I know it's supposed to be a Barry Jackson thing.
Yeah,
really
I'm not sure what's happened here, and that I was asking you about Barry Jackson, and all you're doing is giving us heat takes.
Because look, it's a new year. I've got to get these things out. Okay, the idea.
Happy New Anus.
I will take one, by the way, if you're offering. I mean, a new body part. Why not? At my
You want to
age.
trade or? I mean...
Ooh, no. I need a brand new one. Brand new one, not used, please. But this full circle moment for Jimmy Butler, like, I don't understand how Jimmy checkmated
what about
Pat
your full
Riley.
circle moment? We're just going to skip past your full circle moment.
No one wants my anus.
Izzy Cook. He's cooking.
I know.
At 47 years old, Dan, I don't care what body part you offer me. I'll take a new one. If it starts with then that's where it starts, okay? But I don't understand how Jimmy Butler checkmated Pat Riley when this is very much a full circle moment here for Jimmy Butler. The Warriors will not trade Andrew Wiggins for him. Karl Anthony Towns is dominating in New York, and Jimmy can't find a team. And I don't even think this is about leverage, because the Warriors did not want to trade Kuminga and Wiggins for Jimmy before all of this mess. And now it just shows you that Jimmy overachieved here. Pat Riley and the Heat overachieved here. And now it's breakup time. Oh, well.
But what about Barry? I mean,
I don't understand what just happened. Like, this is not the way that this is supposed to be done around here. And
I'm already here.
Minor penalty, 2 minutes, asshole.
Get Izzy out
A new
of
one.
here.
A new asshole,
one.
please.
Happy new asshole. Get out of here, Izzy. I asked you for Barry Jackson information because it's really odd. Billy, you know this. It's unusual for Barry Jackson to hit somebody with all of this and then
Not as of late. Yeah, Barry changed like 2 years ago.
Yeah, something happened. That closeout line of "Have a nice day," though, that is awesome.
Well, he told us what happened. He said, I've been dealing with some, stuff with my family, and I'm just not going to take it anymore. Like 2 years ago, he decided he wasn't going to take it anymore, and he hasn't taken it ever since.
Hey, moron, I presented both sides. That's what journalists do. I didn't guess who was telling truth and who was lying. Go back in your jock-sniffing hole instead of questioning integrity of multi-time winner of Sports Writer of Year award. Have a nice day.
So good.
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Do you enjoy the sarcastic "have a nice day" as an insult?
He wants that person to have the worst possible day.
That is correct.
Yes.
Jessica, I need to find out about why it is you were running into Shane Gillis at the Golick house at 1:30 in the morning. We'll do it next.
Sub 500 seasons, it's been lonely. Now the best players on our side. Been losing and losing for much too long. But now we're back with New York pride. Jalen, you've got us on our feet. Jalen, we're gonna win the East. Jalen. Without Randall, we're still doing fine.
His name is Cooper, good at running curls, but when his hammy
There was no need for pepper spray to be rained down on me. And I sustained hard time, left eye injury. Ohio State sucks drama, you lost, that's the deal. The video clearly shows, with my eye almost blinded, there's Harry and Lucy laughing.
Baby, I can tell you that I'm pissed they hit Rose with the spray. Oh, she sounded like a goose who stepped on with heels, yeah. Even though Rose was in June, there's Harry and Lucy laughing.
Even though I wasn't doomed, there's Harry and Lucy laughing.
Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. I won't do what you tell me. Thank you. Thank you.
Sub 500 seasons, it's been lonely. Now the best players on our side. Been losing and losing for much too long. But now we're back with New York pride. Jalen, you've got us on our feet. Jalen, we're gonna win the East. Jalen, without Randall, we're still doing fine.
This is a clear-cut end to the Butler Heat relationship.
This relationship has been over. I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here off the court, but I want to be back to somewhat dominant.
Can you get your joy back here on the court?
Probably not.
Jimmy Butler's got a trade he's demanding, doesn't want to play for Spo. For 7 games now he's out, he's suspended, vibes are at an all-time low. No, we can't forget when Jimmy made the Heat a finals team. He's become a menace, Riley's gotten way too old for his shit.
Jimmy Buckets ain't just gonna stand there in the corner. And yo, he's 35, no, he ain't getting any younger. He's lost a couple steps, no longer alpha or a killer. Let's review the situation that you caught up in. He's done this almost everywhere else that he's been. How can we be surprised that he's doing it again? Now we can test the market for an old malcontent to wanna talk or think about all of the money that we spending.
Says he'd play for Atlanta, just not the Heat. Maybe even for Toronto, just not the Heat. Send his ass to Indiana, just not the Heat. Could even trade him to Utah, just not the Heat. Could get his joy back in Denver, just not the Heat. Could sell his coffee as a Clipper, just not the Heat. Maybe a Buck or a Blazer, just not the Heat. Says he'll play anywhere, just not the Heat.
That's a good song. That's a good song. The original is a good song, and that song is good. I have spent too much time, Stugotz, not talking about college football and everything that's happened over the last 10 days. I've got so many thoughts. I imagine you guys have a ton of thoughts. I don't understand how North Carolina was in a bowl game. They had allowed 52 points at the half at home to James Madison. Like, you cannot.
Everyone makes a bowl
Everyone
game.
does. La Tech got in at 5-7. Yes, a lot of crap out there, but holy shit, that Pittsburgh-Toledo game carried me for like 3 days.
God, that was so good. It's always amazing when you find out how many college football coaches don't really know the new overtime rules in real time.
Isn't it amazing to watch all of these geniuses like even LaFleur have problems with time management? They called a timeout yesterday to kick a 55-yard field goal in just horrible freezing that was freezing water bottles that were liquid at one point, and then you just open them and they become ice. And the play at the end, Green Bay, while playing its starters and having starters hurt, loses to Chicago on dueling 50-yard field goals, and you're trying to figure out which of these teams is going to screw up the end of the game more.
Good for the Bears. I like that they asked DJ Moore about it. If, like, are you guys happy about this? Like, was this really the best thing? He's like, yeah, screw the Packers. He said it with the F word, but I censored it for you, Dan.
Thank you. I appreciate all of that. The college football, Stugotz, among Beamer and Bielema fighting over the dumbest thing possible. About when you look at Notre Dame winning, Ohio State winning, I think most of us would argue that Notre Dame and Ohio State seem to be the best teams, correct? Ohio State more than Notre Dame.
I think Notre Dame has been, it's amazing they lost to Northern Illinois, but I think Notre Dame has been, certainly one of the top 4 teams in the country. What I learned about this playoff is we had so much time to figure this thing out, and what we came up with is we're going to give Boise and Arizona State bye weeks and let them sit around and get healthy and get rested, and then they come out and they get blown out. It's been a disaster.
Arizona
Really
State did not get blown out.
Boise didn't get blown out.
Boise didn't get
that was a
blown out
good
either.
game, I thought.
And to your point, like they've already said, like it seems like that's being changed immediately. The whole bye week thing,
right?
Like we're gonna get those. All that's guaranteed to those teams now are just playoff position, but they're gonna totally reevaluate the buys.
Which then everyone's gonna complain about when they realize it means Notre Dame can get a bye without playing in a conference championship game.
Yeah. But Mike, you agree? Like after watching this thing play out, and there's 4 teams left, that there were 5 teams worthy of being in the playoffs this year, right?
Well, but But that's a feather in the cap for the expanded playoff. Is it not? Because right now everybody's picking Ohio State. Ohio State would be on the outside looking in.
I think that's a different conversation. I also think when it comes to Ohio State, they obviously look like they're by far the best team in the country right now after the Rose Bowl. Like they just and the Tennessee game, they've just looked so good in the playoffs. But I don't think there's a way to create a seeding that accounts for the fact that the best team in the country once again crapped the bed in the last week of the regular season against their rival. That's just a thing that like you can't account for when you're seeding a playoff tournament.
But
it's crazy.
When Michigan, though, beats Alabama like that, I did find interesting watching the coverage of, Boise State's a fraud, but Tennessee's not. Boise State shouldn't be in the playoffs, but Alabama loses and Georgia loses and Texas barely wins. And, look, it's the Big Ten that's playing the best football in the country this year. Look at what Oregon's got track stars. Get out of here. Like, you can't stay on the field. You're not physical enough. I didn't have it being like that, Stugotz. When Michigan went and beat Ohio State, I stopped believing in the idea that Ohio State could run with all of these SEC teams. But those SEC teams, I think that the on-field takeaway, is it not that, okay, I guess Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan are better than I thought they were, and you're not going to be able to make the argument that the best in the SEC is better than them.
I mean, on God Bless Football, and talking to Lucy, who covers college football here for Meadowlark Media, she's been telling us that Penn State is legit good all season. That if it were a 14 playoff, Penn State would likely be one of the teams that was selected to a 14 playoff.
Yeah, and yet if you watch the playoff games, like I don't think they're playing particularly well. As ridiculous as it may seem, that home field advantage was the entirety of the reason why they won against SMU. SMU blew several opportunities to take control of that game. Boise State also blew some opportunities there. I think my takeaway, and I'm so glad we missed that first week of reaction because it was asinine. Oh, this is why you don't put Indiana in there. People as if they were actually holding on to that, as if that were any sort of take entering the CFP, that you don't put Indiana in there. No one had that take. And Kirk Herbstreit goes on TV, armchair quarterbacking the situation, and everyone does the same thing, pounds a table for the SEC. But then the week afterwards, we realized, we should have cooled on that. But I think taking anything that we've seen from the bowl games, Alabama against Michigan, what we saw from South Carolina, who didn't even know who Illinois players have been saying, like, they actually thought we were Syracuse. They had no idea who they were playing. These are exhibitions. There's opt-outs everywhere. I don't believe in using a bowl game as credence to support a take. They don't really matter. They're just these funky things that exist with bastardized versions of teams. So I'm not down with that. But I think the takeaway here should be CFP got it right. They ended up getting it right. Once Clemson won that game, they got it right. And here we have a scenario in which everyone is – the odds-on favorite is Ohio State to win this championship. And that's not something that would have been around had they not expanded these things.
I got to tell you that the last 2 years of what I've seen so far, Stugotz, with both Michigan and Ohio State, it's hard not to come away with, wait, that's better than the top of the SEC? Like, that happened kind of quick that yes. I thought it was Georgia, Alabama. I thought it was Clemson. It feels like that one happened a little quicker than I was ready for. The idea that physical Northeastern football is something that beats the Mississippi offense.
And the one SEC team that's in the Final Four is Texas.
The Big Ten's been a big deal for a while. Michigan won the national championship last year, so I'm confused about these takes. Michigan had to beat Alabama to get to the national championship.
No, but Dan is saying I think the general consensus is the top of the SEC is better than the top of the Big Ten, and that's been blown away.
Well, this Big Ten, because I would just say that Ohio State has been in this class with Clemson and Alabama and Georgia. They've been competing with them. The ones that haven't have been Michigan and Penn State, and Michigan was last year.
No, Michigan's made the playoff multiple times before they won the national championship. So I disagree with that take. If you want to, maybe the top of the SEC has been better than the Big Ten, you could argue, but I really think that like a lot of that is because of Nick Saban and his tenure at Alabama, more so than like if you took like the top 5 and compared it to the top 5 or something like that. there's probably data that's out there that I could look into. But I do think, like, yeah, Indiana beat Michigan this year, so they should absolutely be considered the top of the Big Ten with Ohio State and Penn State and Oregon, the teams that made the playoff. But yeah, it was a weird season for the SEC. But an SEC team could still win the national championship because Texas is still in there. So I don't know.
There's just nothing that pisses me off more after a college football playoff game than say, see, that team lost, so they shouldn't have been in there. It's
right.
It's
when
just
all the favorites with the home sites are winning, like that's sort of the point, is that like the better teams get easier matchups. Like that's how that's how tournaments work with seeding and brackets. Like I agree with you, and it was very frustrating. That whole weekend was so annoying because I was at the Notre Dame Indiana game, and it was by far, maybe not by far, but it was the best college football atmosphere game experience of maybe my life. Like it was so much fun. I had an absolute blast. And then to get home that night and hear everyone blasting this game when it's like the first time we've ever had a college football playoff game at a home site and everyone's like just taking a big dump on Indiana. I was like, whoa. Why don't we like the sport that we cover? Why can't we like at least take a step back and be like, wow, that was cool. Oh, it's, Indiana's not there yet, but this is a great season for them.
I would like to seize on that and ask Dan, have you noticed what's been going on with college football media personalities? Because they've gotten more and more surly, and they seem to have turned against the fan base that helped get the ratings to where they're at. It's almost as if they welcomed in Nick Saban as an elder statesman, and they're all just trying to impress Nick Saban with how such a hard ass they can be. And how I really think Kirk Herbstreit came away forever changed by that exchange that he had with FSU fans. And he's just made a projection across all of college football fandom. Isn't this the fun sport? Isn't this the one that we all gather around and say, like, this is school pride, this is cool stuff? You turn on College Game Day and everyone's telling you what's wrong with this. Guys, you're the one that came up with the CFP idea. Why are you shitting on it 1 week into this whole expanded thing? Can we have some fun here?
All right, we can have some fun in a moment with Dominique
Can we just have some fun?
I mean, close games are fun. Blowouts are not.
I want to have fun.
I had a blast at that blowout.
Since you
nice
mentioned
Kirk Ben died.
Kirk Herbstreit, let's have some fun with playing the Shannon Sharp sound going after Kirk Herbstreit, because Kirk Herbstreit was watching Ohio State and he said, let's see what First Take has to say about Ryan Day now. And then Shannon Sharp just went on and straight out threatened Kirk Herbstreit on First Take.
Even though I'm going to let it slide. I'm going to be a good teammate. I'm going to let it slide. Everybody's at ESPN, because had you not taken the route you taken, I would have lit their ass up. But I'm going to let it slide. You know what, guys? Congratulations, Ohio State. You won the game. But, hey, if we're going to be on the same team, if we're going to work for the same network, don't do that. Kurt, Chris Fowler, I promise you, if you ever mention anything, any platform that I'm on again and talking about, I wonder what they're going to say in negativity, I promise you, ESPN ain't got enough bosses to keep me off y'all for what I'm going to say. So I'm going to let y'all slide today. I'm going to turn it over to D.O. before I get myself in trouble. But don't play with me. Go ahead, D.O.
I got to follow? Go ahead. Man.
Not the best spot to put Dominique in. Shannon Sharp is really good at television.
Yep.
And Kirk, please say something else. Please,
because the next one's not going to slide.
Please, I'm imploring you to say something else. Dominique, welcome. I'm very excited for you. You're doing live shows now. The Dominique Foxworth Show is expanding. You're a giant empire now, and you're doing a live show this week. And I heard, Stugotz, how do you think this one's going to go? That one of the featured events is Dan Graziano doing trivia against Bomani Jones.
Oh, wow. Well, Bomani's going to
Graziano's good.
No, Bomani's better.
Who's the favorite here, Dominique?
Bomani.
Dominique.
Well, I mean, I think even Bomani would admit that Graziano's the favorite. So, like, this was born out of a couple years ago. I created like a trivia show for Bomani on his show, and then we started doing it on Get Up, and Bomani always texts me the answers when Graziano's answering it. But Graziano, I think even Bomani would admit that Graziano is the favorite, but you never know. It depends on the questions for sure.
What else are you doing? And tell us more about the event, please, because I was very excited.
It's on Thanks for having me on. It's January 15th. It's in Manhattan at the Whitby Theater. Graz will be there. Bomani will be there. Kevin Clark, Jason Goff. Who else? Hembo's coming. Oh, Greeny's going to come. Greeny's going to show up. I don't know what we're going to have him do, but he's going to show up. So get your tickets, $35. We got alcohol. It should be fun. I did my promo stuff. Now let's talk about the Panthers, guys.
Which Panthers? The Florida Panthers?
Yeah, the Florida Panthers. Like I've been listening to the show. It's so sad. The Dolphins make you sad. The Heat make you sad. The Marlins make you sad. Panthers are good. Right, Roy?
Absolutely.
Panther
man.
talk.
Defending champion Florida Panthers. Yes, they're the best team currently in the
Dominique,
Tri-County area.
see, I'm glad you brought Roy into the discussion, Dominique, because I want to ask you how rare it is to give yourself a haircut and cut part of your eyebrow off. Because this is something that apparently has happened to Roy. Let's focus in on Roy's face here.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Well, what happened? Do I have this right or do I not have this right? Have you indeed accidentally shaved part of your eyebrow?
Well, I believe I may have shaved a little portion of my eyebrow right around here, trying to cut
The hat
my,
helps with
my
the
own-
story.
Ooh, but it works though. That shit look good. I like
thank
it,
you,
Roy.
Dominic. Thank you.
I think
We all
Roy.
gonna
I think
start
Roy was
doing that
threading.
now. I might have to give me a little cut in my eyebrow. How you pull that off?
You know, just accidentally sliding the clippers towards the eyebrow.
I mean, it does look kind of good.
Oh,
You got to be honest.
Thank you.
But how often does this happen? Explain to me, please, how rare an event this would be, not just for Roy, but for any human being that has grace around their head.
Yeah, I've never cut my eyebrows by mistake. I also, I don't know, Roy. I want to focus on how good it looks. And Barkov, right? What about that guy? He's good.
Silky trophy winner. Yeah.
Juju,
Let's go.
Put it on the poll, please. Have you ever shaved part of your eyebrow by mistake?
I think Roy went to like a brow bar or something. Like Roy was trying to give him some eyebrows, some shape, and then he wasn't sure how it came out. So he said, "Hey guys, just my eyebrows look different. I may have accidentally shaved off a piece, just looking for some compliments." And now he knows this worked.
I guess I got to do the other eyebrow now.
Oh, you stopped after one?
Just do one. I like it. It's the imbalance. It's unpredictable. It looks good. I'm a fan.
Remember,
Keep
they're
it up.
sisters, not twins. Eyebrows.
Okay, sisters. Gotcha.
Dominique, name a second Florida Panther.
Trivia.
Oh, Kachuk.
Third.
You trying to play me? You trying to play me, Dan? You trying to play me? You get yourself a nice little shirt with buttons. You got your first shirt in your life with buttons on it, and you want to be a smart ass. Because you're Mr. Big Man. I got buttons. Look at me.
That
I
is
can
what
wear
I was
two
doing.
shirts at
No
one
one
time.
brags about buttons.
That's what I was doing. He sees
I'm
through
so
me.
fancy.
No, he got me. He did. I came in today. Look at me. I got buttons. Nobody's got as many buttons as me. That's
Look,
exactly.
First day back in school from the break. I'm gonna wear all the stuff my
I got
wife
some-
bought me for Christmas. Look, I'm a layer two shirts. Learned
Look at me. I just
Cold
learned about
front
layering.
coming
through. It's coming through. It's 40 degrees this week. It's coming through to South Florida. Genuine winter. Coldest days.
It's 140 in the studio.
It's horrible.
It is.
It's
and
so
soup.
hot.
Smells like
Jesus.
sewage.
It's just sewage soup.
I'm in the middle of a snowstorm here, so you guys need to stop complaining.
I would trade you in a heartbeat right now.
Let's talk
Great
some
shitstorm.
football things. I've got a number of them to get to with you. If Andy Dalton doesn't get into a car accident, is Bryce Young still a starting quarterback in the NFL ever again?
Hell no. Probably not. Maybe he gets another chance somewhere else down the road, but this Bryce Young turnaround has been the most incredible thing. It's almost inexplicable. Like, I see what's happening here, but we always feel like, or at least for me, once you get an idea, the range of what a quarterback can be, he's not just gonna blow the roof like this. If he started his career the way he's playing right now, we'd be talking about him as if he was one of the second comings, like the future of the league. The stuff that he's doing now is really incredible. Comeback player of the year, probably, in my view. I'm a big Bryce guy. He's fun. He's doing no-look passes and celebrating on everybody in very Steph Curry fashion. I appreciate this comeback story that is Bryce Young. And, I mean, it's always kind of the case is we forget the little events that change history for us. But yeah, it's always something like that. I guess it's not always a car accident for Andy Dalton, but it's always some random occurrence that puts somebody in the spotlight.
The Chiefs are scared of Joe Burrow. Do you agree? I mean, come on, man.
Stugotz minor penalty, 2 minutes for Chiefs talk.
No, the
Scared
Chiefs
of
are
him.
not afraid. He's not. Does anybody know if Stu knows about how the playoffs work?
I want to ask you a sort of broader question that I don't think people are talking about today. Do you think that we can make the extrapolation with Deshaun Watson, who was at one point a top 5 quarterback? Best Texans teams we've ever seen are with Deshaun Watson as a top 5 quarterback. Do you make a link between everything he went through and a short-circuiting confidence that made him go from a top 5 quarterback to a bad quarterback, that everything that happened to him derailed his play? Everything everything he did, I should say, not everything that happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with making like general psychoanalysis sometimes, but this is so specific. It's hard to say. He had injuries also, but I can't imagine that having all of those things that you have done come back and be like the main storyline of your life. I can't imagine that's an easy burden to carry, whether it is or not whether it is warranted and it's part of his responsibility for the things that he's done and decisions that he's made. That has to be tough. It weighs on every single person that would go through, that would put themselves through something like that. I do find, though, incredibly interesting that they never paid Baker Mayfield, which I like to go back on that argument because I said they should have paid him, and now he's the best quarterback right now playing in football. Like, I know Mike is off of, I got a little carried away. Not the best in football. That was an exaggeration. He's the best Browns quarterback that they've had in a long time, and I know Mike is off of the Browns, but you got to enjoy the way Baker's playing right now, right?
I become a Bucs fan because of it. I love it.
Ooh.
I love it. I love watching Baker play. Quite honestly, I think he made one of the greatest throws in NFL history to McMillan. That catch and throw was unbelievable, and the TV broadcast angle does it no justice.
It was so great. And right after, wasn't there a penalty right before that?
McMillan, he said he mimicked a gun, which you can't do. By the way, after they scored the touchdown, they fired cannons.
But he just did a first down. What he said he was doing was first down, not a gun, and then they penalized him.
No, but he did a shotgun type of
first down. You can't first down with 2 fingers. That's the thing. That's just foul. But that was a really good throw. But you guys obviously ain't watching Joe Milton if you think that Baker Mayfield's throw was the best throw of the weekend, because Joe Milton had 2 throws in that game that were absurd. I think he threw the best pass or the fastest pass in the league this year.
He was terrible at Tennessee. Terrible.
No, but I could do that throw with an orange. So
he's got a giant arm, and I think the best play he had yesterday was called back on a penalty. I thought the rollout to the left where that was called back, wasn't it? The one into the end zone there where he rolled out to his left and spun out.
I don't remember exactly which one you're talking about, but he had another rollout that I think counted where he hit a guy in the middle field, ridiculous pass. Then he had one to the left that was the fastest throw in the league this year. Joe Milton is probably not very good at football, but he had a really good day, and that was fun. It's very fun having a good day.
What were your thoughts on Saquon Barkley? People are talking about him not breaking Eric Dickerson's record, but he failed to break Eric Dickerson's record. That's a 16-game record. It's not a 17-game record.
Like, you're one of those guys, Dan?
Well, I'm just saying you got to do it in the same number of games.
No, you don't. You don't.
Well,
you don't.
You kind of do. I mean,
you have.
You don't.
What do you mean you don't?
It's a season record. They extend the season, the record changes. Like, no one points to Eric Dickerson and says that the Juice still has the record because he did it in 14 games. Like, if they extend the season, it becomes a season record. Don't fall into this trap, Dan.
No,
You're
I'm saying
Two-shirt Dan is too smart for that.
No, it's got to be the same. O.J. Simpson has to own the record because that's the fastest that anyone's done it in 14 games, and that's what the season was. If you gave O.J. Simpson 3 more games, what are you talking about there? It's not the same.
I think O.J. Simpson's not allowed to have any records anymore. I think that we decided that O.J. Simpson's behavior off the field means that we have to pretend that he wasn't the best running back in NFL history.
But at the time that Dickerson was breaking that record, don't you think O.J. was telling someone, hey, I did it in 14 games? I mean,
probably, and who cares? It's a new record. You know what, I do a lot of old man things now because I'm an old man, but I got pulled into an ancient running back rabbit hole a couple of days ago when we were having this conversation, and Herschel Walker was absurd. Like, there's so many running backs that we don't see anymore because we've devalued the position, that if you watch their highlights, like, we all know Barry Sanders, just watch 15 minutes of Herschel Walker play football, or O.J. Simpson play football. Do that, young people who are not cool enough to wear 2 shirts like me and Dan. Watch some old football. You appreciate it.
It's Ambassador Walker to you.
We should talk about Georgia football, though. They
I
lost
just
to
want to
Notre
talk
Dame.
about Kachuk Barkov. So when is, I mean, I assume the new Dan attire is motivated by his beautiful wife. When's Abby going to get you right, Stu? Come on, man. It's time to up your game.
There's no getting me right, Dominique. We're well past that point. She stuck with me. I am what I am. I ain't changing, man.
All you need is a second shirt. That's all you need, buddy.
Is that it?
Dominique, last thing before I get you out of here. That Giants-Colts game last week was more interesting than anything that happened yesterday. The idea that the Giants and the Colts would play a football game, the Giants would ruin their chances of getting a number 1 pick, and the Colts would have their season ended, because that's what happens when you go to the backup quarterbacks. Like, that game, and yesterday's game for that matter, you can't lose that draft status on one of these regular season games at the end of a season when you're firing your coach.
Don't play Joe Milton. I mean,
yeah, I get it. I'm staunchly opposed to losing intentionally, as you guys know, and as Dan likes to mischaracterize me all the time about when it comes to the Dolphins. But if you're bad at football, you're bad at football. Being extra bad at football isn't going to make you good. Like, playing for draft status is gross to me generally, and I think we have this extended season. You're going to send me into a long rant that's probably pretty boring. I'm going to self-edit myself and point out the fact that if teams stink, they deserve to stink, and they shouldn't be rewarded with high draft picks generally. I hate that as a concept. We should eliminate the draft and only have free agency where you can use money to negotiate. And we can still have a fun show. You can announce what team you're signing with out of college, and they can pay you however much they want to pay you to get you come. I generally hate the idea that there's ever any incentive to be bad. It sucks. Don't reward the guys who suck.
Dominique, what'd you make of Gerard Mayo being fired after just 1 season? It seems like he was a bridge to Mike Vrabel, which seems really unfair.
It does seem unfair, but you got to pick your battles. And Gerard Mayo has a track record that makes it hard for me to defend, and it makes it very difficult for me to say that I would want him to be the quarterback of my team. And it's not even the on-field stuff that I care about as much as it's the way that he's handled the team through the media. I think that we understand now, while Bill Belichick would always say on to Cincinnati, because Gerard Mayo, I think, did some damage to the psyche of the team and the culture of the team by just what he was saying. And so he's not the guy that I want to defend. It is unfair to give a guy 1 year head coaching and assume that he can get the job done and get as good as you want him to be. But I think they're going to move on, or no, I know they're going to move on. And it seems like with Vrabel, like, it feels like they already have a plan set up and in place. And Vrabel's a good coach, but I can't wait. Who do you think is going to be the charade interview? Who's it? Who's up? Tell him I'm available. You need a black guy to show up and chit chat. Holla at me. I'll come up to New England. I ain't been there in a couple years.
Dominique, at least wait till Monday, right? Like, doing it yesterday just felt so disrespectful.
Let the man enjoy his win. He ain't had many of them. Like, it was 20 minutes after the game.
It's the win that got him fired, though, I think. I mean,
it does kind of feel like that. That's part of it. But fire the man the next morning. Jeez, let him sleep good that night. Let him go home and be the big man.
Where can people get tickets to what it is that you're doing? Tell people again on your way out, Dominique, please. We're very excited for Dominique and his growing show. The Dominique Foxworth Show has gotten very popular on ESPN, and now he's traveling, touring. He's coming to New York. Give the people the details on your way out, please.
Yeah, you can go to at Foxworth24 on Twitter. I put a link up right there. The URL is too long to spell it out. You guys wouldn't know anything about that. But you can go there and click it and buy the tickets, $35. It's going to be fun, drinks, guests, all that stuff. Meet and greet? Oh, yeah, we're doing meet and greet at 6:30. I want to thank you guys for coming up and being guests on this show, because you're my friends and you care about me. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Dominique. Good seeing you again. Let us veer quickly, Stugotz, to something I've taken too long to get to. There are a number of football things worth talking about. I love those Titans uniforms. We wasted them, those Oiler uniforms on the Titans.
Fantastic,
And I know Tom Brady stinks as a broadcaster, but I laugh every single time they just put up the graphic 7-time Super Bowl champion under his name. Like it just sits there. It's an asinine thing to read about somebody. Like, it's not like I've forgotten, but when you see it written that way, so like the champion, okay, so he didn't just make it 7 times. He won 7 times. That's a thing that happened.
One with the Bucks.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to get to some football stuff, but getting back to college football, emotionally, Jessica has careened all over the place over the last 2 weeks on something that began as, I can't believe how lucky I am. I get to go watch a special Notre Dame team play meaningful national games. It's not something we've felt for a while, that Notre Dame might be one of the very best teams in the country.
Well, Notre Dame might be the best team in the country. We felt like a couple of years ago, maybe they were a team that could win a national. This is a team that probably should win the national championship.
Okay. Yes, Notre Dame's been a very good football team for probably the last decade and a half, but they haven't won meaningful postseason games, I would say. They've been solid. They've had 12 win seasons. They've played in a lot of New Year's Six games. They've played in multiple playoff games, but they haven't won any of them. So yes, like the Sugar Bowl was a huge moment for Notre Dame to finally win one of these games with a team that has been playing excellently for the last 12 weeks. And it was really exciting to go from Indiana, coming to South Bend, going to the tailgate there, having a great time, and then Lee and I decided, let's go to New Orleans for New Year's Eve and go to the Sugar Bowl. And then obviously we woke up on New Year's Day, and just like, I've honestly felt pretty shitty since Wednesday morning. I feel like super, super lucky that we weren't on Bourbon Street when the attack happened. But we were there all day on New Year's Eve, and waking up Wednesday to like 100 texts from loved ones asking if we were okay. It's just like a really jarring feeling. So I feel really, really lucky, obviously, and I'm glad we were okay, but it's a horrible situation. I posted on my Instagram story yesterday a link to some sites that are, you can donate money to help some of the victims, so I'll repost that today. But yeah, it was just like an awful, awful, awful situation, and I just feel terrible for all the victims and all the families and everyone who's impacted by the attack on New Year's Day morning. It was just truly like just a horrific thing.
The transition is awkward to how fun the trip was at the start, Stugotz, because have you actually ever stayed at the Golick home? I know this has been a source of tension between you and Jessica, because she seems to have made her way into the Golick family, the Notre Dame family, in a way that is a little bit closer than how you've tried to make your way into their home.
I haven't. I have asked several times, and several times they have said no. And so I am insanely jealous of Jess that she has access that I don't have to the Golick family. Drives me crazy, to be honest with you, because I love that family.
Well, I'm sure they would have let you stay there if you went to the playoff game in South Bend. No? Okay. Well, it turns out they just let anyone into their house, because I got back from the game at like 1 a.m. This was December 20th after Notre Dame beat Indiana. And I walked into the kitchen and I saw Kyle Rudolph and another former ND player like sitting at their counter, and Mike were nowhere to be found. And then there's someone with his back to me, and he turns and he's like, "Hey, I'm Shane." And I was like, "Oh, it's Shane Gillis," because he was on game day. He was the guest picker that day, and he made fun of the Oklahoma Thunder, Shane Gillis Alexander.
Yes.
He was just like sitting there and introduced himself to me, and his manager, Becky, was there. Very nice woman, Dan. Don't worry. I told him, I was like, "Hey, my boss is a big fan of all comedians. He thinks you're a modern day philosopher. If you ever want to come on the Le Batard Show, standing invite." So we exchanged information with his manager. So I did some networking for you. So don't say I didn't work at all the last 2 weeks, okay? South Beach Sessions may be coming soon. He said he was that's a great, actually. Do you pay for Comfort Plus upgrades? Because that flight, it was not full, so I upgraded.
Comfort Plus?
Yeah.
Wow.
If we get
American.
the All-Star on the show, that's worth it.
Yes.
Anyway, so I didn't get to see College Game Day that day because I was tailgating, but it turns out he made fun of Nick Saban the entire time.
We're looking like Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
So, Alabama Jones had me dying.
But
And someone finally addressing, you guys cheated, right? You guys paid. That's why you're so great. You paid. And then everyone's squirming. And Nick Saban not playing along with it.
No,
He's like,
he
this is
was
the fun
so
show,
mad.
right? He's like, this is the fun show, right?
He
We have
brought it
fun
up
here?
again the next day. Like, he was insanely triggered. And still no one has explained to me why he was wearing the hat. Why was he wearing that hat? I do not understand.
The time in my life that felt most like that, and we talked to Jimmy Kimmel about this after it happened, was when Jimmy Kimmel went into the booth as a comedian and was like, why are you guys treating this like a cathedral? You got the court jester Kornheiser over here, and he gets a football handed to him by Bob Kraft, and all of a sudden, everything out here is sacred. So Shane Gillis comes out and says Alabama Jones, and of course Saban's been pontificating from on high on college football while doing all the commercials, one of them in a whirlpool while still wearing a shirt. Let's go, Nick. Come on, Nick. You can't be in the whirlpool still wearing a shirt
Wait,
in
the
the whirlpool.
VRBO commercials are really good, actually.
They're pretty good.
Those are good commercials.
No fun police.
The sun is
Make me
dangerous,
laugh,
especially at that age. And he seems to have a good tan. So I
You can't be. Then do a different commercial that doesn't have you with. Look, me and Chris Cody can do a whirlpool shirt for sure. But if you're going to do the commercial, you can't put it on the poll, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Can you wear the shirt in the whirlpool?
Do you think Greg Cody is going into a whirlpool with a shirt? Of course you can. Like Greg does it, Nick can do it. It's an old man thing. That's all it is. I mean,
It's a hide your body thing.
think
It's
it
not
kinda-
an old man.
not in
thing.
your case.
I think that SGA example on game day is a good example of like, why has this show become so surly? And I look at what's happened. It's
crazy.
You had the FSU thing happen
Yes.
with Herbie, and you had Nick Saban come on, and I think they deferred to him. Credit to Pat McAfee, who I know is pretty polarizing, remains to be to a degree, but especially on that show, there was talk that he may not even come back. And I think by just being himself, maybe toning it down a little bit, but by comparison and contrast to the rest of it, he is so welcome. That energy is so needed because it has become a wet blanket of crotchety college football takes that make me feel bad for liking this sport.
I would say that generally across all American sports media, you will find an aging cynicism from the people who have covered it for the longest time, especially now that the controls are gone. And I don't know is it true of yours that $6 million is being offered? The reports of $6 million.
I've heard $10 million.
To get Ewers away from Texas while he's still there and not go to the draft so you can just have a quarterback next year, because the University of Miami obviously got Cam Ward cheap. When you see what these things can do to the economy, like, of course the old crusty people aren't going to get comfortable with that. When now wait a minute, you mean to tell me that the college kids are going to be making a lot more than I am at covering the sport? That the left tackle for Colorado is going to earn a lot more than me, who's been a gatekeeper, who gets to invite people to the Heisman ceremony.
He realistically should go back to college, though, for another year, right? Like, his draft stock is not where it should be. Like, he should take the money and then potentially increase his draft stock over this next
If the
year.
number is $10 million, that's more than he'll make in the NFL on a rookie contract.
Who are we talking about?
Ewers.
Yeah.
I saw $6 million as the highest.
Yeah, that was
report.
reported.
Is
out
Mario in the game? Need a quarterback.
I think Quinn Ewers is certainly not going to be playing at Texas next season. I can guarantee you that.
That's a yes.